Good morning, or evening, or afternoon, or night, whenever you're watching this video. In recent days, there has been a surge in theories about the knight's true identity that I am appalled and shocked at the fact that no one has gotten it right. As you can see, there have been many theories that Karl Marx is the knight, LeBron James is the knight, Genghis Khan is the knight, or maybe it's Billie Eilish. Some have claimed that the knight is not a real person because it's a game character. They have indeed theorized that the knight is secretly Sayuri from Doki Doki Literature Club, Phoenix Wright from Ace Attorney, and Sans Undertale from the hit game Undertale. Others have decided on a more philosophical meaning, while such as the knight being a literal concept of a thing. For example, Dino Axolotl. I think it was Dino Axolotl that has said that the Hollow Knight is not a new character, but he embodies friendship. It's a concept of friendship that the knight embodies, and Time Chalice has said that the knight is you. Yes, you the viewer. And it's an interesting theory, to be honest, but it's false. These all presented theories here fall into the category of falsehoods. I, however, will not debunk any of them because the difference is that I know I'm right. No need to disprove anyone. Of course, there will be parts of a debunk in this presentation about this topic, but it's not the main story of this. It's not the main story I'm gonna tell you. If you have read the title or maybe seen the first slide, maybe you didn't, well, I don't blame you, but the truth is, it's Władysław Gomułka who is the knight. First off, if you're not interested in history or maybe you're just not Polish, I don't blame you. In fact, I should be proud of you. You're not Polish. You're better with that. Well, you could be French. I'm sorry for slang there, but you could be French. Oh yeah, you could be also British. I would be really sorry for that. But anyways, who is Władysław Gomułka? Well, he was born in 1905, and he has died in 1982. He was a Polish communist and politician who has served as the first secretary of the Polish United Workers' Party in the years 1956 to 1970, who has dragged a wave of dragged? Well, that's a weird word. Who has ridden a wave of social discontent into into power, which had begun as the part of the dissatisfaction as on the cult of personality and its consequences sprung its word amongst the Polish populace. While it didn't exactly criticize Stalinism in its exact and its whole crimes, it made people think, because in previous years, well, the era of Stalinism, it made people like question that era, and people thought, well, they couldn't think, but now with this release and the second ongoing, it's made people think that is this system really right? Is everything we're living in really okay? And with that social discontent, he has ridden a wave into the office of the first secretary of Poland. And he was upset by social discontent itself because he believed that he went and got a deal with West Germany about the recognition of the Polish western border, because that was a whole issue that we had. He could afford a hike in meat prices right before Christmas because, meat prices, communism, centrally planned, centrally installed, and all of that jazz. And shockingly, this move caused strikes, and the eventual brutal suppression of the protest caused Edward Gierek and his faction pounce on this and take power for themselves. Later, I will be expanding on this point, right? And as a fun fact, he was also really autistic for scientific data. One, he liked when his undersecretaries for agriculture and stuff, when they sprung raw scientific data of nothing really mattering but cool numbers and stuff. I don't remember the exact names of these secretaries, but when you are watching this video, you can ask. I believe I got this from Mirosław Szumiło's book about Gierek's rise to power. It also talked a lot about Gomułka. But yeah, you see, okay, you're talking about Władysław Gomułka, but where's the damn evidence? And here it is. Point 1. Jesus Christ. My heart is sore. Alright. First off, Hello Night, released in 2017. Pretty good here. Half-Life Alyx, released in 2020. I think it releasing was one of the upsides of that year, considering everything, In the latter, G-Man makes his latest appearance in any Half-Life games, unless, as I'm making this video, Half-Life 3 screenshots unearthed. There's been this whole stuff with, maybe they show it at Game Awards and they didn't show it at Game Awards, but, I don't know, I hope not. Well, I hope so they do in this year, but in this context of this video, I do not. We see, The Night first appeared in 2017, the game has appeared in 2017, succeeded by G-Man himself, and there have been Polish sources on YouTube, mainly led by the Polish chief historian Tyszko, who have proved with empiric studies and evidence that G-Man is secretly the embodiment and is the same person as Edward Gierek, who has directly succeeded Gomułka as the first secretary of the Polish United Workers' Party, and by proxy, he was the next leader of Poland. Is it coincidence? Well, maybe. I don't know, but there's more. You see, both characters share the same color scheme. Gomułka has black eyes, then Hollow Knight, the Knight, has black eyes. Gomułka has a white shirt, and the Hollow Knight also has a white hat. And the cape of the Knight, it shares the same color as the suit of Gomułka. Would they really share the same colors if they were not the same? But maybe you say, oh, this is another coincidence. Well, it's another coincidence happened, and there's a pattern here. But next point. Poland, during the rule of Gomułka, have maintained better relations than the rest of the Soviet bloc with China because, as you know, 60s, the Sino-Soviet split is ongoing and all. But Poland maintained slightly better relations with China. Poland maintained like 3 consulates in China, like other countries didn't get so many. And Gomułka played the China card as the way to unify the Soviet bloc because he was kind of a communist internationalist because he wanted to keep like the whole communist bloc united, but he wanted to bring it together. A stronger need for hegemony between the Soviet Union and the China was ongoing, and the Sino-Soviet split was getting stronger and stronger. And ultimately, Gomułka has sided with Soviet Union because, to be real and to be frank with you, Soviet Union still basically controlled most of Polish foreign policy, and if they wanted Gomułka gone, they could really get Gomułka gone, and believe me, they would get candidates for that position. During the 60s, they maintained communications with the partisan faction led by Mieczysław Moczar. They had talks with Edward Gierek and all. They were really a lot of people wanting that to be the leader, but do you really blame them? Anyways, he still maintained meagerly better relations with China. What does this mean? Because China is related to silk, like the Silk Road. And there's a lot of silk in China. And what is the next game in the Hollow Knight genre? It's the Silk Song, as presented here. It's the Skong from Silk Song. This is the Hornet, but Silk Song. Could it be that Gomułka, who is the Knight, sold Polish foreign policy, in fact, to make releasing Silk Song possible in the future? Because just think, if Poland had not maintained better relations with China, would Silk Song really release? Because Gomułka wanted to keep better relationship with China so that China would not object to one of its marks, that being silk, being used for a Hollow Knight game, and Gomułka, being the Knight, wanting to keep all options for Team Cherry for the next game to be open, so they could have more options for the next games. Alright, so this is the last point that I want to make. I want to reference the video that Nugents made that the Knight is actually Karl Marx. The presentation is, I think, wronging here. Let me check. Yeah, because it's the why Karl Marx is still the Hollow Knight video, the one that talked and expanded about the theory. He's telling the truth about the fact that the Cornifer is selling the manifesto in parts, and the knight, well, he's saying, I'm not saying that the knight, who is Karl Marx, is buying these pieces because he wants the Communist Manifesto back. Well, Cornifer is still selling the Communist Manifesto, but it's not because the knight is Karl Marx, because he just sells books. That's all. Wait a second. There's also more people that sell stuff. There's the Cornifer's wife, Iselda. Look here. So, Knight also buys the maps and the writings from Iselda. Because, why does he do it? Because Iselda may be a secret oppositionist. Well, maybe she's not a direct oppositionist. Maybe she just wants to write about stuff she really wants to write stuff about in newspapers. But she still lives in an era of, well, she still thinks that the press is liberalized after the initial wave of Polish October, which brought Gomułka to power. But later Gomułka started to censor the press and make everyone think that the communists are still in power, so he is buying the writings from Iselda, who may not directly know that, because, well, let's forget about that. Whether she's conforming to the party line and she's not secretly writing oppositionist propaganda to make the people upset at the communist regime, which is obviously glory to the regime. Yeah, glory to the regime. The regime knows best. And the Cornifer thing. Well, the knight is buying the Communist Manifesto from Cornifer, not because he wants it back, because he's not Karl Marx, but because he wants to make the party cadres more loyal via educating them by forcing them to read the Communist Manifesto. So they become more loyal to him and the general idea of communism, and to make them not go into sectional and faction fights within the party. Because Gomułka, after the first initial split that got him into power between the Puławians and the Natolins, he had to deal with the emerging partisans led by Moczar and the sometimes allied, sometimes opposition to his regime, and also to the partisans, the Śląsk faction led by Gierek. It makes you think. It makes sense because the knight is not a stupid person. He may do stupid things. Well, he doesn't do that. He's very smart. He just wanted to assure the people of, well, the loyalty of these people below him, right? So the evidence is very clear. The knight is Władysław Gomułka, and I hope that everyone has watched that video does know the truth. And even after watching more videos on this topic that may be lying, they may say, "Oh, it's actually not that far. It's actually not Gomułka. It's totally irrelevant thing." They still know that the knight is indeed Władysław Gomułka. Well, not any other person or being or objects. Yeah. So let me reiterate for the last time. The knight is Władysław Gomułka. Thank you for listening to this video.